Hello. Good morning, Lagos, Nigeria, Africa, the world. Yeah.
Yeah, the world.
Welcome to Techbytes again, the podcast show where we dive into the latest tech news and analysis, and we bring innovative minds to talk about topics that affect you and I on this show. All right, from artificial intelligence to cybersecurity to blockchain to Internet of Things, we cover everything here. All right, this is episode 28, just in case you don't know. So you have 27 episodes you have to listen to before you listen to this one. Just kidding, you can listen to this one first. I'm your host for today, Damilare, and I'm not doing this alone. I have with me here in the studio Tomiwo. Tomiwo is editor here at Technext. Hi, Tomiwo.
Hi, I'm Larry. Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, how's it been with you? Tech, cash problem, elections.
Oh, it's not been easy, but at least one of them will be over soon. At least tomorrow, the elections will be over.
Right.
And I think from next week, the cash crunch should become easier to deal with as well. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, true. So yeah, as always, we are going to be your guide through the ever-evolving world of tech. Don't worry, you're not paying us, but we're fine. We're fine.
Yeah.
Also, today we'll be talking about a very, very important conversation that has been happening for several months now. All right, we're going to be dissecting it for everyone, and it's about the cash scarcity, the naira scarcity in Nigeria, the new ruling by the CBN, Supreme Court, and all of this and what it means for you and I. All right, so stay tuned with us till we have that interview. We have two amazing personalities here who would be breaking down this topic for you, right, for free. Yeah, for free. All right, but first we'll give you an interesting tour around the world of tech. So sit back, like, comment, share, get your headphones, join us, and let's take you on a tour. So first of all, we'll start with Stripe. Yeah, so Stripe raised $6.5 billion. When I saw this number, I had to look at it twice. Like, the poor Nigerian in me thought, it was probably like $6.5 million. We've seen that one. $30 million, $100 million. But $6.5 billion, bro.
It's Stripe now. When you're big.
All right, so digital payments company Stripe, just in case you don't know, it's also the parent company for Paystack, our Paystack. Yeah, it bought Paystack for $200 million like 2-3 years ago. Yeah, so it raised $6.5 billion this week in a Series 1 funding round to value the company at $50 billion. Although it sounds like a very huge figure, but this was half what it was valued like 2 years ago. Yeah, it was valued at $95 billion about 2 years ago, and now it's raising $6.5 billion to be valued at $50 billion. All right. But unlike other raises, Stripe noted that it doesn't need this capital to run the business. Like, it's not like it needs the money to expand or something. No, it's fine with current runnings, but it needs this to provide equity and liquidity to current and former employees, address employee withholding tax obligations relating to equity rewards, as well as retirement of Stripe shares that will offset the issuance of new shares to the new investors. So basically, they're about to pay off everybody holding Stripe's shares, their employees and old employees, to give it to the new guys.
That's actually very good because I think one of the executives said something like the people that actually built Stripe to where Stripe is now, is actually time to actually reward them so that they can benefit from the greatness that they've built for other people.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So the latest raise is from lots of venture capital giants. It's $6.5 billion. What are you expecting? Andres Horowitz, Peter Thiers, Founders Fund, Bailey Gifford, MSD Partners, Strive Capital, General Catalyst, as well as in other new investors like GIC, Goldman Sachs, Wealth Management, and Temasek. All right. Like I said before, Stripe is the parent company of Paystack. So is it that Paystack people might get some trickle,
I don't know how exactly they're going to qualify the present and past employees, but most likely something will touch somebody's pocket.
Paystack run us our money. All right, moving on. We have another not so good news, right?
Well,
Yeah.
the tech ecosystem is kind of filled as these days.
It's been
Layoffs, yeah.
continuous for like several months now. Layoffs, shutdowns, crypto crash, everything. But this week it's about the payment, another payment startup, but this time it's an African payments company, Cheaper Cash. Just in case you don't know, Cheaper Cash is a unicorn, so it's valued at over $1 billion, right? So Cheaper Cash this week. So there's this Silicon Valley Bank that many Silicon Valley companies or many African companies and many companies around the world, tech companies and otherwise, have their money in, have investments from, and all of that. And the Darling Bank shut down this last weekend. Yeah, it shut down, and it was a dominoes.
Since then, startups have been worrying. Indian startups have been scared. African startups have been scared. Everybody that had money, everybody looking for investment from Silicon Valley Bank now, they've been just what's going on?
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. And like Tomiwo said, lots of African startups have been scared. But one particular name that has been announced or that has come out to own it is Cheaper Cash. So Cheaper Cash is a payments, cross-border pan-African payments service startup. All right. And the startup says it has about $1 million.
Only about $1 million.
Only about $1 million in SVB as at the time of crash. Yeah, it had about $1 million, and also beyond the money in bank, SVB's capital, which is like the investment arm of SVB, also has an investment in Cheaper Cash. So this means SVB owns like 2% of the entire Cheaper Cash.
That was why when the SVB closure happened, a lot of people thought about Cheaper Cash immediately, because they know that when they raised that money some years ago, they knew that SVB
exactly. I think they were a lead company in the raise actually. And this is quite interesting, right? If we can use that for this startup, because just last year it had the whole FTX issue too.
Late last year, it was like 6 months ago or something.
It had the FTX issue, and just 3 months into the new year, it's having an SVB issue again. And reports also came out this week that it was considering a sale or an acquisition.
They're considering different options. We have more investors, but I mean, if they get a good enough offer for a sale, they would consider it.
Cheaper Cash is one major tech startup in the ecosystem, and we wish them all the best, because it means good for the ecosystem if they survive.
But because of the new FDIC rule that the United States are trying to say, that people with money in SVB will still get some of their money back, if not all of their money back. So I think there's still light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, as at Monday, they said FDIC promised them that they were going to get 50%, about 50%, like $500,000 of the money in the bank back. Then there'll be processes for the other ones eventually. All right, but I mean, beyond Cheaper Cash, right? The SVB crash has also had ripple effects on the African ecosystem. Lots of African startups are scared. I mean, the Y Combinator's president Gary Tan said on Twitter that 30% of YC companies exposed through SVB can make payroll in the next 30 days, and Y Combinator has over 80 African startups in this portfolio. So it's a Russian roulette of who is talking to now.
Wow.
And who would fall first.
I hope that everyone can survive, but I foresee some layoffs coming in the future again if companies cannot afford to pay salaries. Just let stuff go.
It is well. Hopefully this entire phase is over quick soon and people can get back to innovating and all of that.
With peace of mind and rest of mind, knowing that investors will not run away or crash or get shut down again or something.
Yeah. All right. On to another news. It's not a bit sad news, but it's just there. So Meta is removing NFT features from Facebook, Instagram, amid the crypto misery. All right. So I mean, AI is the new kid. NFTs and metaverse are looking like oldies now, and people are like, you know what, it's not focus again, you know.
Funny thing is, a lot of crypto skeptics don't even get to enjoy or see the goal of the NFTs and everything before the whole metaverse is just shifting away from that and
They
jumping
are
into
moving
the AI
away,
game
and
now.
the same way it's pulling out NFTs, it is adding chatbots. We talked about that like last week or last 2 weeks. It's adding chatbots to this platform, so feels like a shift in its focus. So Meta is removing non-fungible tokens (NFTs) from its platform, and this is less than a year after I introduced them. I mean, and this decision comes from the fact that the crypto markets in recent times has been woeful. It's crashed today, slump tomorrow.
Rise today, down tomorrow.
So yeah, it is trying to to ensure that it focuses on other areas to support creators, people, and business beyond this very shaky thing.
Yeah, but I mean, so because like you said, they are removing these features less than a year or about a year after they announced it. So what if come next year AI is no more the hot thing? What if another company comes up with something even hotter? Will Meta now start looking to focus all their investment on that?
In this age and time, feels like you have to move where the world is moving. Else they'll leave you alone. That was what happened with what's it called? What's that popular chat house like everyone goes to? Clubhouse, right?
Twitter,
that was the hot thing.
Twitter Spaces chased Clubhouse.
So that was the hot thing. Then everybody was running to Clubhouse. Android users felt like we were left out. We're anchoring. Clubhouse, please come. And eventually, by the time it came, it felt like it wasn't needed again.
Move
Even
on
Twitter Space, the use is not as much as it used to be anymore.
So. Move on to other things already.
We don't move on already.
Ever evolving tech landscape.
Yeah, you have to be on your feet. So, and Meta is also the latest company to take the exits, from NFTs and all of that after crypto's underwhelming run in recent times. But some people have come out to bash Meta that they shouldn't be doing this, that it's a short-sighted move. A popular NFT artist, Dave Krugman, said it's a short-sighted move and that Meta quit before it's even started.
I agree with him because I know that there are a lot of crypto skeptics out there, and if a company that is as big as Meta, as influential as Meta is shying away from it, then I would think twice about buying NFTs or thinking about NFTs. I'm like, maybe just Mark Zuckerberg probably knows more than I do. So if he's willing to reduce his investments in it, why should I invest?
Like you said, tech is ever changing. So in the next few months or years, NFT can come back to the fore and we're back into the game. All right, next thing, so this is leading into a topic or conversation for today, but in February the failed cashless transaction in Nigeria shrinked e-payments by 4.8%. Yeah. So the value of e-payment transactions in Nigeria fell to 37.65 trillion in February, right? According to data from the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. This shows a 4.83% from the 39.58 trillion that was recorded in January. And what was the reason for this? That has been widely alluded. It is failed transactions. So the cash chunk or crunch, right? Scarcity, naira scarcity, made people move away from cash to transfers and electronic payment systems. And in moving away to that place, we found out that the infrastructure or whatever cannot carry everybody.
Cannot carry everybody because these days if you go on social media, on Twitter, somebody somewhere is
having issues
abusing one bank. He's not even having issues now. They just call banks out. I don't want to name any bank right now just for
I have my fair share
for security reasons. But
one of you is holding my 10,000. I know you. I'll not call you out, but I know you.
But every day, I mean, in all fairness, I think the January figures was the all-time high in a very long time. Was that
because everybody was just getting into it at that point. But, I mean, while everybody was getting into it, the data and all of that was not all good, right? And transactions were failing, and that caused a reduction in February. All right, but away from that, some more numbers. So the more usage of mobile transfers grew right, by 69.87% from 108.14 million times in January to 183.69 million times in February. And this
Wow.
is, I'm not actually surprised because as of January, lots of traders that were not collecting transfers. By the time I went back in February,
That's right.
right, the one saying,
That's
yeah, they
right.
collect transfer now. So people were actively moving away because I
Yeah.
mean, either you move or you don't sell.
Or you don't sell, and if you sell perishable goods, you just start realizing that
Your
nobody's
goods is
buying my
wasting,
thing. Yeah,
and you don't have
exactly.
money to go and buy
And
back.
even when you go to the market to buy back, you have to use transfer to actually buy fresh
So
sets.
why are you wasting your time?
Why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, transaction value also grew by 7.88% to 2.56 trillion in February from the January figure of 2.37 trillion. The value of transactions also increased. That was what fell to 36.79 trillion from 38.772 trillion. POS transactions. I mean, POS have been one of the biggest winners of this entire thing. The merchants, they are the new blood money guys.
I think when it comes to cashless policy, everything, the POS guys, they will always be the winners. But I don't think it's only the POS guys that do POS to give you cash, like even receiving money via
bills,
POS,
transfers, and all of that.
everything.
Yeah.
It seems like one of the easiest ways to just make payments these
And
days.
it's everywhere.
And it's everywhere, literally everywhere.
So it grew to 883 billion, right, in February compared to the 807 billion recorded in January. These are lots of numbers, right? And we don't know how the new regulation would affect these numbers going forward, and that's what you're here to decipher. Actually.
Yeah, maybe people are now used to these mobile transactions, this using POS, and they're like,
continue
you know
going
what, you can even keep your cash.
It's fine.
But I don't think so, because the cash crunch has been very, very difficult
Yeah.
to deal with. So
I think people would have withdrawal syndromes, and people would just go back heavily into cash and all of that.
Okay.
But oh well. Thank you guys for listening in for the Around the World in 10. All right, we hope you learned one or two major tech news from this week. Yeah. So moving on into the conversation for today, right? The topic is the cash crunch as it affects the citizenry. That's Nigerians.
as you and I.
You and I. Yeah, you and I. All right, so I mean, if you have been to Nigeria, if you're in Nigeria over the last 3 months, this is definitely no news to you that the cash crunch, has had a significant impact on the daily lives of Nigerians. Either people are complaining, or they are
complaining,
or they're arguing, or they're angry. I mean, we did street tech, and we went out into the street to ask people, and if you watch that video, lots of people that answered were angry, right? They were complaining and all that. With scarcity of cash, businesses struggle to operate. People providing goods and services could not get it easily. Consumers also could not access this. And what happened? There were rise in prices from both the withdrawal place to even the payment place.
and even people selling regular stuff will tell you to add extra 100 naira or 50 naira because you are transferring it.
So it means you have to think twice before you go out to buy something, reducing going out to buy something majorly.
But going out again is a problem because transportation is very difficult if you don't have your own car.
Yeah. And all of these, lots of experts have said, it could increase the already high poverty levels in the country, particularly amongst the vulnerable population, people in rural areas where access to electronic systems of banking might be very, very difficult and all of that. We've seen the results already, slightly long queues in ATMs. Some ATMs don't even have money, mobs and banks, destruction of banks, and all of that. Like, it's been crazy over the last several months. By the time the numbers come in, we'll have seen, ripple effect on the economy, money lost, and all of that.
I think even inflation has gone up.
Inflation also went up by like 1% or
by 1%. I think it's
something.
now 21.2.
Yeah,
I'm not sure of the exact
15% or
numbers.
thereabout. Yeah, so to discuss all of this today, we have with us two very important personalities, all right, who will be helping us break it down today. We have Jeffrey Williams Edem. He is an accomplished business and sales leader with over 11 years experience in the fintech industry. He has taken on high impact sales, growth, and global strategic partnerships. He's recognized for deploying innovative and novel business and operational models in combined sectors, in multiple sectors. He has combined experience as a sales account manager, business developer, business analyst, operation expert, and he's able to design customer success criteria by managing a cross-functional team to achieve high impact outcomes in multiple markets in fintech and the financial services markets. I mean,
Oh wow.
if you listen to all this, then you know that it's a very, very important personality we have.
We are
Don't
so
stop the video now. Why are you stopping?
we are so
Please.
honored. We are so honored to have you.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi guys, thank you. Thank you for that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah,
Good morning.
thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
Sure. I'm well, thank you.
All right. Okay, so next also we have David Etido with us. David is an associate and member of Udo Udoma and Bello Osage's private equity mergers and acquisition, competition, and corporate advisory teams. Since joining the firm, he has been involved in a wide range of matters, including corporate restructuring, structuring of mergers and acquisition, competition advisory, and setting up of joint ventures. He has also taken part in several due diligence investigations, including involving major companies. Thank you for joining us today, David. Hi, David.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Oh,
Very
yes.
happy to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Very great, very great.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining
Thank
us.
you.
So we'll go into the conversation for today. All right. So as you know, right, it's been months now since CBN announced the change of Naira notes to cash swap and all of that. And this has affected cash and availability in the country because the new design notes are not in circulation, right? And eventually it has had to rescind on its decision to ensure that the old Naira notes are back in circulation until December
About 31st.
31st and all of that. All right. In light of this, describe to us what has this cash crunch done to the lives of citizens? How have you experienced this, and what are your views about it? Jeffrey, do you want to go first?
Sure. First, I'd like to explain what a cash crunch means. Yeah. All right. So you find that if a country or an economy lacks the physical cash to do what it needs to do, and so everybody's scrambling for whatever available cash is available to trade or pay bills or take care of themselves, that is a cash crunch. Now, if you look at a typical example is why you have dollar having fluctuations is because a lot of people are trying to trade with it and it's not available, so automatically it becomes more expensive or it affects the trade that needs to happen. And that's what a cash crunch is to a country. Now, if we look at some of the impact that this has affected, you'll find health. For me, is the first thing. You go to the hospital, there are cases of people dying. There was a pregnant woman on the news where the husband could not get cash to pay for her to be on there, and then the lady couldn't make it. This is a very, very direct impact of what this is causing to people today. You also have feeding, transportation. If I can't go to work, I can make money. If I can't go and do business, I can generate income. If I don't generate income, I can feed my family. And even when I do generate income, I can't spend that money because I don't have access to that money to spend. So people are being impacted. From more economic point of view, supply chain as well. You want raw materials to be delivered. The person will say, oh, I don't mind bringing gum for you as a shoemaker, but you've got to pay me for me to produce that glue for you or gum. You can't pay that person. The person doesn't want to take a transfer. So now, you've always done business by paying cash. Such transactions are microtransaction below 3,000 naira. And so you are stuck. You can't get glue. You can't go out to mend shoes. You can't generate money. The little money you've generated, you can't spend it. So it's really impacting on people's life today. For me personally, I've always lived my life 90% digital transaction, 10% cash. Because of being in the fintech. So I found ways around ensuring that the people that I do business with are either banked or have the means to take the digital mode of payment. But still, I still go to the vulcanizer who would say to me, Oga, your money na 200 naira. And I cannot be picking up my phone. I want to do a transfer. He will not want that. Or I have the guy, the parking lot that says, Oga, your money na 500 for today or 100 naira. And I can't park because I don't have 100 naira. So imagine how that impacts on business, meetings, productivity. I can't go on, but you get the gist.
Yeah, that's been a lot. That's been a lot. Thank you for sharing your experience. David, do you want to pitch in? How's this cash crunch affected the citizens, Nigerians, as you see around you?
I thought you asked me how has it affected me first, so that. But I mean, it's been very crazy for everyone. At first, maybe some of us were a lot more um took a let's wait and see view. So let's see what's going on. Let's see why this is happening. Um, and try to understand what the CBN is trying to do. But subsequently, there were clear orders of court that we expected would have been obeyed on time, and it just kept spiraling down. That at this point, it's up to almost going to 3 months or 4 months from when CBN initially thought about this whole currency redesign, cashless policy, withdrawal limits, and it seems like all the problems are still besetting us. So I mean, the improvements is really minimal in the entire policy. So that's really where the concern is. So right now, it's really bad. And I just spoke to a colleague yesterday. It seems this is getting worse because I can remember about 2 weeks ago, I was able to set my eyes on 500 naira notes, new notes. I've not seen 500 naira new notes. I can't remember. Maybe in the last 2 weeks, I've not seen. I think I got 1,000 naira yesterday, finally from new notes from the fueling station. So it's rather seems like it's getting worse, and it's really biting everyone. I don't want to repeat most of the things he has said already, but it's really biting everyone, and everyone this time around. Maybe that's one good thing that's come out from this cash crunch is affecting everyone from the high to the low. I mean, different classes of people. Even bank executives are also feeling the cash crunch. So it's really a tough one for Nigerians, and I could imagine people coming to Nigeria during this time. You just gave a rundown of things happening all over the tech space. You're familiar with like the tech stars event that is happening. People are coming in for those events and trying to get naira. You can imagine being
How
told that you
difficult it
can't
will be.
have access to more than 2,000 naira or something. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I imagine someone who came in for like a tech event trying to convert his dollar to naira. yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, but Jeffrey, as you see, when this cash scarcity started, it feels like a lot of other business owners just took advantage, like to find a way to take advantage of other Nigerians. So the POS operators that use their POS machines to receive payment and then give people cash, they increase their charges. And then some businesses will tell you that if you are transferring any extra money, you have to add
Add
the
on it,
charges.
yeah.
So do you think that this our attitude kind of made the entire thing worse?
Well, yes, it did make everything worse. And because there is no regulatory around curbing that, it's free fall for everyone, which is unfortunate, really, because we're not supposed to be taking advantage of this kind of situations, but trying to make things easier for people. It's a culture that we need to look at. However, we also need to look at why they are putting that extra cost. Is it because the cost of business has gone up? Is it because of the cost of naira has gone up? Is it because of the cost of time? I know people who have to close their businesses for hours just to go and queue up at the ATM. I know people who have had to queue up for hours at the banking halls just to get cash. So this would have to be factored back into the business. And so the person that will then take that hit would be the end consumer. If that end consumer also has a business, he will transfer the cost, and it goes on and on and on. So sometimes we see these things, but we understand why it has to be done. but in most cases, it could be avoided. So instead of trying to blame these people for it, maybe this was not implemented properly and could have been approached a bit differently.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we know this cash crunch, that's affected the availability of, new Naira notes. Even the old Naira notes for a very long time was unavailable until maybe like a week ago when the laws and
Supreme
everything
Court
came
said
out.
that we could use it.
And people moved online to perform transactions and all of that. But we are looking at other causes of distrust. We're looking at other causes of distrust of the financial services, and I think it has been amplified again in recent times with the old failed transactions, with the entire
Fake alerts.
and all of that. People have not always trusted the digital financial space. Now this entire cash thing has increased it again, and the fact that people like to see physical money. Do you also see this playing like a part in the entire issues that the country has faced in recent times? Jeffrey?
That's a very good point that you've made. Now there are two different problems, but at the same time they are dependent on each other. Nigerian businesses, majority of them do cash transactions. We all know that, especially the MSME. So whether your digital platform is working or not, that is what the trade preference is within that space. And until that continues to change, which has been changing. I mean, last year alone, we had 150% increase in the adoption of digital payments. So, I mean, the market is gradually adopting and changing its perspective to that, but it's still cash dominant regardless. Now, the problem is that there is a reason to go digital. And unfortunately, the ecosystem for digital payments was not ready for that heat. It wasn't planned for. So the surge of people, new people going to try out something that they are not used to, means that you're going to have a lot of error rates. The increase in the error rate means that you're going to have a lot of support people providing support to these errors that have come through. Now, people were not employed for those. Some of the systems are not fully automated. Some are automated but integrated to non-automated systems. So everything is just going to be a mess because I don't have enough staff to take care of these errors coming in. I don't have the automation to take care of these errors coming in, but more people are trying to use the system, which would have been an amazing opportunity to get more people to find confidence in that particular ecosystem. But it just kind of collapsed when they needed it the most because of all the errors, people trying different things, people not even knowing how to use the platform. Now, if you go online and you're trying to even use the system, we still have not done enough on educating new users on how to use these things. We haven't. And so you find that this is what Rufus has told me, or what Jane has told somebody else, or somebody trying to demo it for you for the first time. And of course, you make errors in your transaction before you get it right. But getting that money back from the error you've done, that's where most people are stuck. And that is what is increasing the distrust of the platform today.
Just to follow up on one point you touched about educating the citizenry, like Nigerians, the people who are not financially literate or included so far. So before, when this law came out, when the old cash change thing started, lots of experts came out that this was going to be a good playing field for agent banking, the telcos who have been giving PSB licenses and all of that to, play and expand their tentacles and all of that. Do you still see, and maybe there are no numbers, but I'm not quite sure if that has really been seen so far. What would you say has been the stumbling issue to that? Would this still be the infrastructure? Would this still be the people-ish? Or it's just a system error, if I can say that?
Very good word you've used. I would ride on that. Is a system error. So you're trying to create a policy. You're trying to create a policy that is supposed to affect trade in every aspect of the economy. There are three people that play a vital role in trade in our economy today. This is the bank, the agency network, and the fintech, right? The banks, you can see how overwhelmed they've been. The agency network, no access to cash. So the real benefit of that is you don't have to go to the bank. Come, I'll do the transactions for you. And what are those transactions? I can give you cash, or I can transfer the money, or I can pay bills for you. Now, when you transfer the money to somebody who cannot get the cash in the first place, system error. When you come there and you want to get cash, withdraw cash, and there's no cash available, system error. Now, you fall back on the third layer, which is the fintech. You go onto the digital platforms. Again, I've mentioned all the challenges that they could have been experiencing at the time. So everything wasn't planned. I felt that in introducing the go live for this policy, critical stakeholders like the bank, the agency network people who are also licensed and recognized by CBN, and the fintech people who are also licensed and recognized by the CBN should have been brought on the table, and the framework to how we're going to manage this discourse, and maybe put what is called a fail-safe. A fail-safe is where if it doesn't work out, how do we roll back? So what can we do to quickly augment the system so that people don't have that kind of impact? So poor planning, poor implementation, we're suffering from it, but there could be some solution. Maybe we could discuss that as we go on in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but considering the system errors and the failure of the stakeholders to carry the SMEs and the MSMEs along, but these are the ones that actually drive the economy. So even if they don't have the right education to actually use these systems properly, or they face errors constantly, maybe at the bank level or the agency banking level, what else can they do, or what else should they do to actually ensure that their business continues to thrive, like on their own part? What else do you think they can do to actually just make the best of the situation?
You're very, very good question. I like that. So for me, as a business person and as a BD person, and having spoken to hundreds of SMEs in my line of business, one of the things that I would advise is review your payment terms. Everything is about payment, right? So you know the cash is having an issue, you know the platforms are not. So review your payment terms with the trusted customers that you have. Please note, I said trusted customers. Can some transactions be delayed? Can some transaction be paid in another certain way? Can you take other form of payment? Can you sell on credit for giving them time for them to pay back? Can you do trade by barter? What can be traded for this transaction? So it's not, those are still legal tenders, but just re-engineering the way that you do your business in such a way that your customer finds it comfortable within the context of the difficulties to buy from you. That would be my first advice. My second advice I'll give to the people is bank transfer and cash is not the only option in the market today. You have USSD, which is very reliable as well, right? You have POS, which is also very reliable as well. Some people would say, oh, well, it was crashing, it wasn't working, but it's a payment option. By the time you try cash, you don't have that. You try transfer, it's failing, and pop out the POS, right? And then try the USSD code. So we are blessed as a digital economy to have multiple payments, far more advanced than most African countries, but we're stuck on the loop of cash and card. There are other options now available, and a lot of the fintechs have made it so easy for businesses to integrate and have access to this additional payment option, either as the one paying or as the one collecting the payment. And I think businesses need to expand their scope as regards that.
So review your payment steps.
Yeah, review your payment step. I like the trade about that, and I heard some people already doing it. You have Maggi in stock, and I have something else in stock. Give me Maggi, what this? I'll give you this, what this. yeah, that works.
Well, that's like throwing us back to the Stone Age.
Oh well, that's what they wanted.
Well, no, it's not throwing us back to Stone Age. It is just what is valuable to you and what is valuable to me. The problem is that you just want cash to hold until you find something that is valuable. Instant, we can trade with anything that we have.
Okay. So David, this next question is for you. So in the midst of this entire cash problem, from beginning to end, the federal government has been relatively quiet. right? And these are the people we elected to do things on our behalf, right? I mean, I didn't elect the CBN governor, I didn't elect the Supreme Court or whoever is there. We probably voted for the person in power in presidency and all of that, but
That's
they've been
right.
relatively quiet since this entire thing. And also from that, you now see, okay, the Supreme Court came out, some states took the CBN and all that court, the Supreme Court came out, and for like 2-3 times it kept moving its decision days, right? And in the middle of those moving, right, of moving those days, it kept saying that in currency is still remaining valid. People should not stop spending it. But CBN was saying stop spending.
In fact, I think people did not even pay attention to the Supreme Court
Supreme
order
Court at all and all of
until
that.
Buhari said we could spend the old 200 naira notes.
And people now took that serious and all of that. Then the Supreme Court eventually ruled that it should remain legal till 2023. This entire whole process back and forth and all of that between the Supreme Court, federal government and CBN, what is the legality of it? Like, what was the whole point?
So I don't think we can say what's the legality, unless I'm going to be sitting in judgment on the different actions of the actors, which I don't have the authority to, especially because one of the key actors here is the Supreme Court, which is the final court. So the Supreme Court had given a decision, and that decision is final and is not appealable in respect to that matter. But then you can see Nigerians' understanding of democracy at play. You can see, like you said, something instructive, that you didn't elect the CBN governor, you didn't elect the Supreme Court. So automatically, you see why it's only the order of the president that was obeyed eventually when he says, okay, release the 200 naira notes back. And everyone immediately started using the 200 naira notes. And that's because there's still a lot of gap in our education of what a democracy is. We still have a lot of gaps in our understanding as citizens. The lawyers, to some certain extent, would say they understand it, but do the citizens understand what it means to have a court judgment? So when a Supreme Court gives a judgment, what's the implication of that judgment? It shouldn't be subject to interpretation either by the legislature or by the executive arm of government. It should be obeyed in totality, except you have a right of appeal and you are exploring that right. But we're talking about the Supreme Court here. So there is no grounds and no reason why the Supreme Court would be contemplating or seeking for presidential approval or seeking for any form of approval to implement the decision of the Supreme Court. Howbeit, there are certain gaps that are typically explored in judgment like this. So when the Supreme Court says implement this, let's see, we saw videos of bags of naira note that has been destroyed. So the question is, what happens? The Supreme Court cannot gum that back. Sorry, the CBN cannot gum that back. It's gone, and so there's nothing anyone can do. And so the decision has already been taken, and which is why in most cases, you apply for an injunction when you have a case pending to say take no further action while this case is pending. In some instances too, well, once a case is in court, the parties, which in this case was the Supreme Court, the federal government, and the Supreme Court is the body of the federal government, should have actually stayed action till the Supreme Court gives judgment. But like I said, we all admit that there were various interests that were playing around during the saga, and it's still playing around. And I dare to say that they were largely, in my opinion, tied to the elections, tied to controlling financial flow and everything. So people, they had to do what they thought they needed to do, but some of those actions clearly were flouting court order from the initial court order that was granted, and that's a big red flag for our democracy. We can't afford to cherry pick judgments that we obey, despite the fact that people have legitimate concerns over judgments, and that's why we have an appellate system. But you can't keep appealing up till the heavens. It has to stop somewhere. and you count your losses from there. So that's what the CBN should have done, and know and count its losses from there, okay, and then obey the judgment of the court. The federal government, as you said, kind of made itself look as if it's at the back of the issues, not putting itself out as
Yeah.
the orchestrator. But just like the Supreme Court finally decided, because one of the key issues that was before the court was the issue of jurisdiction. And the lawyers, so the federal government, argued that the Supreme Court does not have jurisdiction because this case borders on CBN, and that means the Federal High Court has jurisdiction over the case. And the Supreme Court says the CBN is an agency of the federal government, and that brings the case within the ambit of the Supreme Court. So when you have such position, it also shows that the federal government was intricately involved in this naira change and naira redesign policy, despite playing the ostrich a couple of times. And then the ball stopped at the president's table to give clear directives to the CBN anytime he received the judgment of the court. Yeah.
Okay, but drawing from the question, because normally I would expect that citizens, we should respect the decision of the Supreme Court, because I remember the very first ruling that the old note should remain legal tender.
Nobody cared.
As soon as I heard the judgment, I tried to spend the old 500 naira notes I had, and the merchant was like, no. I'm like, but they just said this, and they said no, they were still waiting for something else. And the last ruling, I think the CBN kept quiet for like 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days
until President
released one statement.
No, before that, President Barry came out to say, I'm not telling CBN or Malami to go against the Supreme Court. And then some hours later, CBN now came out to say that, okay, this is the way we are going
They
to.
just released that statement live.
This is where we are going to. It was at night. This is where we are going to spread the old notes back to the deposit money banks and all. But as citizens, what exactly should we do? Do you think that we can accuse the CBN for flouting the Supreme Court ruling? Like, why are you waiting for days before you bring out a policy to actually carry out the judgment? What are our rights in this regard? Like, what should we do about this kind of flout on our democracy?
I think you've just been very Nigerian by looking for how to accuse the CBN rather than looking for how to accuse yourself and every one of us for flouting the Supreme Court order. So the Supreme Court gave an order. If by the time you gave that merchant the note, he collected it, everyone collected it, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. Everything would have gone on fine. But for whatever reason, which I can ask you to, why do you have to wait for the president to give the order again, or the CBN, when the Supreme Court judgment had been given and is a formal judgment of the Supreme Court? I know, expectedly, you expect the Supreme Court to issue a statement, but you obviously don't also expect that statement to go against the Supreme Court. I mean, you expecting that just means that you have accepted that this country is in a dictatorship and everything has collapsed. But I think we're still in a functional system to some extent. It's functional, and we are reaping the dividend of having a structure. But Nigerians, which is where I started from, don't understand that structure. Joseph spoke on trust. So those two things. So there's one with trust, because over the years, we know that court judgment has been flouted. So there's a legitimate expectations from Nigerians that, I could collect 100,000 naira cash from someone now, and then I go to the bank, and the CBN is saying, no, we're not obeying the Supreme Court judgment, because it has happened before at all levels. So that legitimate distrust is there. But then I think there's also the issue of understanding of how the system works, understanding what powers, and every citizen should have this understanding. What powers do the legislature have? So if the legislature passes a law, so sometimes you see how, let's take for instance, the legislature calls the executive and says this CBN policy, and they do it a number of times. This CBN policy, we don't like it. We order you to reverse that policy immediately. As a Nigerian, as a citizen, you should know that such things, you should just laugh about it and also encourage them and say, okay, we support what they are saying. If you don't support it, it's an argument they are making, because the legislature doesn't have the power to order the executive or the judiciary. What the legislature has the power to do is to make laws. So immediately, if they actually want to change that policy or want to stop it or do anything, they engage their lawmaking process, pass a bill, and get that bill assented to by the president. If the president refuses to assent to it, then they take it back according to the provisions of the law, and it into law, and it becomes law. Then the executive has its own functions. So they interpret the law and they make and they bring it into effect. The judiciary actually interprets when there's any issue of confusion, just like we had the rights and obligations and so on, and tell the executive that this is what they have interpreted. Then you implement the law. So if you understand all this, you know the rights of your rights when the legislature speaks. You know your rights when the executive speaks. You know your rights when the judiciary speaks. Because ultimately, if something goes wrong, you cannot sue the CBN or the federal government. Let's say you have a contractual right to deliver something to someone within this time, a contractual obligation, sorry, to deliver, let's say, a product, and you needed cash to do something, and you're saying, oh, I didn't have the new note. The court will not listen to you because CBN did not release his statement. Because if you had the old note at that time to spend and to effect your obligation, you cannot be saying that it's because CBN did not give the final order, because the court judgment was in effect and everyone knew about it. So there are nuances to this thing. It's not that straightforward. But all what I'm trying to do here is to put it back on the citizens that we need to do better. We need to understand our laws. We need to understand the legal system, the basic legal system that we operate in. And I think this was a compulsory course in most schools for GST, because every day we keep seeing how important it is. Yeah. If we know these basics, then we won't be having a lot of issues. Life will be very easy. And even after the president communicates, sometimes it still takes a long time before it trickles in, before some people are convinced and so on. So it's really an information and education issue.
So system error again. All right. So Jeffrey, so in the middle of all this cash issue, scarcity, and all of that, the financial institutions themselves, the banks, they've been majorly in the middle because they are the B2C, they are the ones that consumers see, right? Before nobody sees CBN. We just know there's a Mayfield.
Where do you want to see?
So banks have been in the middle, right? And in recent times, their services have been below par. The customer care, even the issuance of the cash and all of that. I mean, I know someone who took the Friday of that decision being made. She took 300,000 to the bank. The next Sunday, by the time they had said, oh, okay, money can flow out back, she went to the bank and bank was not releasing money. And I mean, this was just one case out of several others that had happened and all of that. So what role can the banks and the financial institutions play in helping citizens and businesses navigate the cash crunch? Because it's still happening, although we hope it gets better over the next few days, but it's still on. So what can banks and do better?
Well, the bank can only do as much as they're able to do. I'm sure if a bank has money, it would give out. I'm very sure about that. No bank would have money and not want to give to the citizens because it's against their entire ethics as a bank. However, when the cash itself is scarce, because we are being told that some very important people have bought half of it and kept somewhere, they're only limited by what they have. Nobody wants a bad experience and put their staff in a bad situation where some of them are being attacked and all of that. I mean, we all saw the news. Yeah. But they can also try to use this to learn how to automate and be more informative. I don't think I received a lot of text messages from my bank educating me about this cash crunch, what I can do, what I should be doing. Maybe do a roadstar system and say, we've got 16 million customers. On Monday, we'll let 1 million of you come to the bank. We have been scheduled for collection. Just automate the system. Be more innovative in the way you see problems. See, in the end, we all just want money. And we want to see that you are approaching the problem and trying to solve it, not complaining and sitting down and saying, oh, because we don't have cash, there's nothing we can do about it. Make your infrastructure work better so I can use digital payment, invest in better servers and better infrastructure. Now that you know that these kind of things may happen in the future, that's one. Two, consider automation. How can you make the movement of cash far better so that people are not overly dependent on coming to the branch or when transaction fail. I don't have to wait. So I did a transaction yesterday, big amount of money. Now, the guy called me 3 times now this morning that I have not seen the money. Meanwhile, I've gone to my account. The money has been debited. Now, that is already causing friction between me and someone else already. But the money is left between two banks. So the infrastructure that is connecting all the banks together was developed maybe 25 years ago. We need to look at that again. What is making interbank transfer difficult? Can we have CBN reinvest in that infrastructure and say, I mean, this is our project now, and not leave it to somebody else to do, so that the experience can be better for the citizens? The third thing I also wanted to talk about as to how they can do this is to be more empathetic to people's concerns. Yeah. So you cannot do something, but the way you speak to people can be a good thing. So how you interact with people, the incentives that you give to them, the ease that you give to them. Please, was there any circulation of anybody giving out cold drinks for people lining up at the ATM? Was there anyone?
No.
On
No.
whose cost?
I think the few times I went to the bank, I doubt the bank manager came down to talk to anyone.
Bro,
But there are news of people that fainted.
there you go. So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if this was outside the country, I don't want to mention any other country, so it doesn't look like I'm comparing. They would have brought cold lemonade to everybody there. I tell you, they would have given free vouchers for lunch.
But you know, Joseph, that if you start giving lemonade, you might see a queue that people are not even coming to the bank.
No, but I mean, the point is that you would find
I get it. Totally.
yeah, just do something for the people so that they are less anxious. Even your security man is talking to them like, I came to collect my 100K. You're talking to me as if I came to beg you for money. What are you what are you
Yeah.
You don't treat me like that.
Yeah.
So that is further frustrating people at the point. And the same thing with other fintechs as well. When people have transferred money, like I have, so I went to my bank app and I cannot find a way to report that I've got a dispense error. See, this is what we're talking about. Tomorrow, I would be finding it difficult to trust that platform again or use that particular banking app again. This is what I mentioned earlier, that the culture of information needs to be better improved, where people can find information easily in the domain of where they want to do transactions. Two, that the entire lifetime experience from beginning to the end needs to be considered, so that I can feel that if this does not go well, these are the alternatives that I have. These are things that are missing in some of our apps and our customer engagement today. And then finally, that somebody is trying to do a transaction. Maybe open a portal and say, see, if it is a critical transaction, right, and it is something to do with trading and anything else, while it is not going to deal with physical cash, but any transaction that is pending that needs to go from bank A to bank B or from bank A to bank A, this portal or this number has been set aside to deal with trading or financial issues within two parties who have already transacted already. I mean, just be more creative in the way you approach this thing, and people will be less anxious or less agitated, which is the problem. I mean, if I know you can't solve the problem, but I can see that you're making an effort, I'll be less anxious and less agitated.
Sorry, if I could step in on that, can I?
Yes,
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. I also think that I'm moved to where I think the bank could also do better, but I also think it's quite unfair. This process has been very unfair on the banks. The banks didn't have a meeting in December and think of redesigning the currency. The banks didn't think of implementing the cash withdrawal limits and everything. And from what we hear, they were largely not consulted. And then, but they banks solely have to deal with the consequences. So the CBN I bet to say that CBN is not dealing with any consequence of this. They just go to their offices, they don't have interactions. The first time they had interaction with customers, they saw something and they said, everyone go back to your banks. So you see, they are not even bearing the consequences. And the bank had very short time to respond to these policies and to the changes, and they're just barely even trying to survive themselves. But where I actually have issues with what the bank have done within this period is that they have revealed the flaw in our system. You cannot have, let's say, 13 or 14 banks in a system, and then you have a regulator that does not even listen to you, the banks, that does not also consider your position, consider your safety, consider your business and everything, and you behave as if your hands are tied. You saw what the governors did. Immediately they saw that everything was being threatened, they approached the court. If the CBN is putting you in a situation that everything is going into jeopardy, you should be able to stand up to say, no, we don't think this should work, and at least make a case. But then we're having a situation where human beings are becoming, that has always been the case with Nigeria, by the way. They're always more powerful than institutions. So you have the case that maybe the CBN governor is so powerful, the president is so powerful, but then it shouldn't be that way. The banks and the financial institutions should be able to galvanize themselves to have a say on issues, to push. And I beg to say that we as individuals cannot push as much as the banks on this issue. If the 14 banks, or if I don't know the number of banks in Nigeria, came together to say, we don't think we are able to support this policy, the implementation. Our infrastructure is down. We don't have the capacity for people to move cashless within 1 month, and make a case for it, sign a letter, make it available to the public, make it available to CBN, or have a communique. I think the CBN would have retraced its steps. But you understand that everyone is afraid of one human being. Maybe this will happen, the presidency will call you, receive call from chief of staff and so on. We shouldn't be the way our policies are being implemented. And if we can solve some of these issues in terms of the citizens, and taking us back to citizens' response, maybe I'm saying this because I'm a lawyer, but I'm just saying that if we do more as citizens, because as a bank, it's just a citizen of Nigeria. The bank is also, it's an institution, but it's a person in the eyes of the law and a citizen. If as citizens, both as corporate and individual citizens, we're able to push for better policies, we're able to actually say that this thing is pinching us somewhere. And even when we like this are talking about it, the institutions or people at positions are able to speak up, should actually speak up and say, well, actually it's pinching us. Because sometimes a CBN governor on national TV said that he doesn't know Nigerians run petrol generators. And was very shocked to hear that. I think that's Sanusi said he didn't know Nigerians run this and that. How can someone say they are using petrol generator? There's nothing like petrol generator. So because some people can grow up and live all their lives and have never seen a petrol generator. So people need to speak up to say, oh, this thing exists. And to buy petrol for generator, people have to carry keg and go to filling station. And some people might not understand it. So people need to speak up and take corporate responsibilities, individual citizen responsibilities more serious.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, David. So I want to just throw this final question to the two of you. I know that you already talked about what the banks could have done better or what the banks should have done to mitigate these issues that we all faced as citizens, but it feels like a lot of people are actually culpable for it. Like you said, including us, the citizens, the government, the CBN itself, and history is bound to repeat itself if we don't learn lessons from this our current mistakes. So ahead of next time, what are the lessons that we should learn that we can apply in the future, especially for us? You said that people should speak up. I think people spoke up actually. Like every media house talked about the cash crunch. There were articles about pregnant women crying in banking halls. I feel like the government cannot say they did not hear these things. Right? I think people actually spoke up. But in terms of taking responsibility, what else? How exactly should we go about it? What are the things that we should actually do? And with the CBN too, in terms so that this kind of mistakes, this kind of issue does not happen again. If they want to change the currency design in the future, what other steps should they actually take so that this kind of issues not come up again?
Okay, let me go. I think the first thing that we must all admit that should be done is consultation. Consultation. You cannot, and you should not implement a policy that will impact significantly on over 200 million people, even if they are your employees, without consulting. That's why you see for companies that are maybe retrenching staff, they have to call a town hall session, get to communicate. You cannot, by a wave of your finger, no matter how good intentions your plans are, you have to consult stakeholders, consult the various people groups that this decision will impact. So it is very necessary. So next time, if government is thinking of any policy, they should consult widely, hold town hall sessions, and let people contribute to the policy that they want to implement. And if you are able to do this, you will see that first you get the buy-in of people, and then you get to have people suggest workable plans for what you're about to implement. Again, I want to advise Nigerian institutions not to undermine the intelligence, the ability of Nigerians to circumvent the system. I think the CBN did not think through to the end the possible ways Nigerians could circumvent the system, the possible opposition this can have. You're trying to fight something that affects very powerful people. You don't just come there wearing a vest. You should come fully prepared. See to the end. The CBN, I'm sure, was shocked to see that the governors could go to the Supreme Court. But if they had just done maybe a strategy session, they would have thought about all those things. You can't just think that people will swallow whatever you push out without any pushback. So you have to think it through to the end and see what are the gaps, what are the challenges. You want to stop, let's say, vote buying, for instance. It's presume that the first 10 million you send to the bank, a big man will collect it. So what did you do ahead of time to stop that from happening? So you have to preempt the hardships. You have to preempt the ways Nigerians who have over time, we are very smart people, you have to give it to us. So you have to preempt it, that who have over time shown their ability to navigate systems. As a lawyer, I can tell you that we are not lacking on laws in Nigeria. What we are lacking on is implementation and the genuine or the ingenuity of Nigerians to circumvent systems. So after implementing a law or a policy, you have to think of how do you mitigate people from cutting through corners and everything. So that's my own take.
All right. Jeffrey, quickly.
Okay, well, I would say that for businesses and individuals, get banked. When you get banked, that means you have other ways to collect money and spend money. Open up your businesses to other forms of collection so that you are not stuck on cash if this happens again. That would be my first advice. If you have one bank, please open two more. And then for the body who has implemented this, you need to learn to educate people. Information was scarce. Distribution of information was also terrible as well. Now, people have a certain, for those who understand Nigeria, we have a certain way of doing things, and we do have systems. So there are ways that people in the rural area act. There are ways in the city that people react. So look out for how they interact and what their distribution channels are, and try to build the right kind of information and pass that on to them, whether from their channel for remote people who are not even close to any bank, or those who are in the city who are going to need that transaction even more than others, so that way everybody's informed, everybody knows what to do, there is no panic, everybody's planning ahead to know that, okay, if you're going to need money, if you want to do a transaction, this policy is coming, these are the things that you need to know, these are the things you need to make adjustments for. All of these things would have made all of this unavoidable, unfortunately.
Okay. One quick last question, yes or no. Do you think people will trust the financial system again?
Me can take that.
What? Okay, please go on.
Okay, so I think it doesn't matter. If you ask me, Nigerians have thick skin. Why do you think we like Momo? I think we just I think we just bounce off anything. That's why we're so accommodating of all sorts of things. I will not say rubbish, but all sorts of things. See, in the end, if I have light, I have transport, I can collect my money. I don't care about anything else, right? So that's how Nigerians are. That's the spirit that makes us be able to survive anywhere else in the world. That's hard on us. So yes, there might be some mistrust, but if I need to engage the system because I need to do a transaction, I will, and I'll take the experience there forward. That's what I see about Nigerians.
All right, great. David?
So I don't think we have an option. You said it as if we have an option. So what options do I have? Do I withdraw my money and start? What options do I have? So the financial system must work. So that means we must all put our hands together, put our voices, put everything to make sure the financial system works. And to be fair, we have a very strong financial system. So far, we've seen the collapse of banks, the SVB bank that just collapsed. And in Nigeria, there are times that government have stepped in before it gets even that bad. We saw that with Sky Bank, you saw that with a number of banks. So I think we have built some level of trust in our financial system, which this should not just erode. Can it be better? Yes, and we should just work on making it better. And all the stakeholders, this is me saying, please, let's just work on making it better.
Oh, great, great. Thank you very much, guys. This has been an interesting, wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot today.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, and I'm sure our viewers and our listeners have also learned a lot. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Thank you very much, David. Do you quickly want to share your social media handles so people can follow you and maybe connect with you to ask more questions and all the rest?
David can go first.
Okay.
At David Etido, that's my Twitter handle. And I think I just go by David Etido in all my social media handles. And Etido is not a popular name, so it's quite unique. You find me very easy. ETIDO, David Etido.
All right.
And the same applies to me as well. It's Jeffrey Williams-Edem. So whether on LinkedIn or Twitter, I'm always on LinkedIn or Twitter. I don't do any other one. So on Twitter, it will be Jeffrey WE10, which is Jeffrey We 10 on Twitter, and then on LinkedIn is just Jeffrey Williams-Edem, and you'll find me there.
All right, great. Tomiwo.
7 Omiwo, that's Tomiwo, but 7 instead of a T. And Dami.
All right, mine is Ackdown07. All right, thank you very much, guys, for joining in, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If this is your first time watching, you should subscribe, like, share, and watch the previous past editions.
Binge watch.
Yeah, just in case you don't know, this is Techbytes by Technext, and you can follow us on our platform technext.ng. Till we'll come to your ears and your faces next time. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.